Oh, okay. It's the late
Yeah,
getting that.
and I found that hard to believe because
How you
knowing
been,
you.
honey?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
Sent Janet a letter.
Thank you, Jay. I pulled it up to read that. I said, you could read the booklet. So, just one second. And this,
The new, who I asked Janet about, it's still a working document, so. But there is a section that would
So we have to
pertain to, I guess, open space and landscaping.
yeah, that's about it.
I guess,
Yeah. Room in the back of the corner of the dog.
yeah.
Yeah, I saw that.
The new, who I asked Janet about,
they would like to see the park for meditation purposes.
Well, they'd like it for they live around there, it's their private park, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Wood only was planting flowers. There was no worrying about the rough, there was no worrying about the erosion, there was no worrying about the wood quality, there was no worrying about the tree quality.
Yeah.
So
Oh, that's what I got. No, I didn't mean anything.
I told them what my vision was and what happened. And then they met with Ed and me, and one of them got up and walked out of the meeting. 15 minutes in. And then they sent us letters, every commissioner, the council, and they made that was important. And so,
very unfortunate.
it is because I'm sad because, nothing they did was good. They built this wildflower. It was twice as big as Tucson. And never maintained it. And the leaves were 8 feet high and all. They never maintained it, took care of it. And so, they went in there and they were going to do it for us. Well, they were taking it too seriously. And all the lower branches. And I said, you can't do that. A pond. And they just, it was, I offered to have them work with Marty and learn how to prune trees. I offered to help them pay for the wildflower garden. I offered to and get some help from our landscapers. It was,
Thank you.
they weren't interested, so that's where I stood. So, yes, I'm a very difficult person, you know that.
Right.
No more than I am.
Hi, I'm Harry Punch. I used to be commissioner here.
Good to see you live, man.
Looks like we have a
I
lot.
got my booster. It's been 2 weeks since I got my booster, so
Well, good for you.
I can risk it with you vermin.
It's gonna be hard for you, but we'll handle it.
And actually, Jim, page 11 is my question.
Okay, well,
It should be financially secured.
yeah, Janelle can talk about that, so,
That's what I'm doing, yeah,
I'm gearing up, I gotta go.
keep kicking it down the road.
good evening, everyone. I think we will start our meeting. It is 6:32. We're still waiting for Rodney Robinson, but I think we have quorum, so we can get started. This is the regular monthly meeting of the Parks and Recreation Commission, Monday, November 15th, 2021 at 6:30 p.m. I will call the meeting to order. I do have a few announcements. I would like to let everybody know that City Hall will be closed on November 25th and 26th for the Thanksgiving holiday. The city Christmas tree will arrive on this Thursday, November 18th. It is being donated by Patricia and Harry Still down in Millville. Hillsborough. It's being transported, cut and transported to the city of Lewis by Sussex Tree, and they are donating their labor and time and equipment. The tree will be lit on December 4th after the Christmas parade, which kicks off at 5 p.m. And after the tree lighting, we will have caroling in Zwannendale Park. Lewis Lights has extended their registration for participants in the Lewis Lights program to November 25th. So please make note of that. And Barry Duncan is excused tonight. He is out on vacation in a very nice location. Yes. So I am going to change the agenda just a little bit. What I would like to do is start with B1, which is the approval of the minutes, and then jump down to agenda item E1, which is the presentation and discussion of the draft changes of the subdivision code. And Janelle Cornwell, the city planner, is here with us to go over that. So the first course of action is item B1, approval of the minutes from the October 18th, 2021 Parks and Recreation Commission. Have you all had a chance to review that?
Yes.
Are there any comments, discussions?
No.
I had one notation under the call to order and announcements, called the meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. And then there just seems to be part of the next sentence missing, stating the historical marker was placed at George H.P. Smith Park. I think it's probably just that I continued reporting that that historical marker was placed, but that was the only observation that I had on the minutes. So if there's no further discussion or comment, is there a motion to accept the meeting minutes for October 18th, 2021? Harry, thank you. A second?
Second.
Ray, thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, the motion carries. The meeting minutes are accepted. So we will jump down to item E1 under new business. And I did send out to everybody, it was a little bit late today, but you all should in your email have a copy of a section of the subdivision code that pertains to parks and recreation for open spaces and landscaping recommendations. So Janelle is here. This is a working document. It is by no means final. This is just to give the commissioners here an opportunity to know what is being discussed and stay abreast of the continued discussions. Janelle?
So thank you for having me tonight. So as part of the Subdivision Code Subcommittee, they're actually doing pretty much an entire rewrite of the subdivision code. A lot of things are changing. They're just moving into different sections, but we're taking a different look at things. So as part of that, we wanted to make sure you guys were aware, because you are part of the subdivision process, and to get you information about how we're looking at the landscaping and the open space sections of the code. Those are two of the big new ones, or big things that we're changing. The way the code is set up is we have an intent, kind of our purpose statement, and then we break it down into standards, which are the code requirements, and then at the end, you'll see guidelines, which are items that, if the planning commission or mayor and council is going through that, or even you guys as a group decide to place a condition on an application, that's typically where you're going to find those condition items is the guidelines. So one of the things I thought I'd start with is the definitions, because right now the only definition for open anything is open areas in the subdivision code. So we're looking at actually adding 4 new definitions, one for open space, community open space, permanent open space, and usable open space, because there's been a lot of discussion about what is open space and how is it being used within the major subdivision process. So we've come up with definitions for all of those. Everything's kind of been vetted through standards and other places. So we've done our research, and as we've been working forward. So we've got 4 new definitions. Again, we're keeping the open areas definition. And then the big items are, which is, the standards. Article 4 is now the standard section. And so letter D is the landscaping requirements. Again, the intent, if you remember, the subdivision code has a list of like 21 items. Those are actually being moved into the intent standards. So they actually have a little bit more relatability, and we can use them a little bit more as we move into making a decision regarding an application. So the intent is there, the applicability, the requirements. You guys will still see the application. It's no longer going to be a separate application because they would make one separate application to Parks and Recreation Commission and then a separate one to the subdivision. So it's just going to be, they're going to submit once all together, and then I'm going to work with Janet, and then we'll get the application in front of the Parks and Rec Commission. You guys will then make a recommendation, and then it will go on to the Lewis Planning Commission. So it's all going to be one part of one whole application. It just kind of streamlines the process. You guys still see it, still going to make comments. It's just the back end and how it gets submitted will change, but the process still stays the same. So as you look through it, and I only gave you 14 pages out of an 80-page plus document, because we're still working on it. Again, as Janet said, very, very, we think this is good. We're going to be sending this out to the public, which is why I'm here tonight. If you have a lot of detailed discussions, I do welcome you and anybody who's listening to the public workshop here in the Rollins Center next Tuesday, the 23rd, between 10 and 1 o'clock. We're going to be having a hands-on exercise. There will be a presentation at 10:15, and then it'll be repeated again at noon. So if you want to learn more about just the whole process or provide more detailed comments on this, there is definitely an opportunity for that. But as you see on page 2, and I'm thinking you're going to notice the standards for landscaping have greatly increased from what is currently in the code. So it went from, I think, maybe a page or 2. So the standards now go from, in your packet, from page 2 all the way to page 12. So we put in a lot of different standards, a lot of different items that need to be get in there. And again, the standards are code requirements. They have to do these if you're going to go through a major subdivision. And then on page 12, you're going to see we had a couple of guidelines. Actually, it was only one because I think they did a pretty good job. The subcommittee did. I'm just staff, so I don't make the decisions. But I think they did a really good job of, addressing all of the needs. If we miss something, please let us know. That's why we're here. We want to make sure if we miss something, you got to let us know. So some guidelines that we could condition on something. And then we looked at the open space requirements. The biggest change there is the code currently requires 10% open space in a major subdivision. The subcommittee there was consensus to increase that to actually 20%. And then how is that open space function? 40% of it has to be in one contiguous space. How as it relates to wetlands and water bodies. So we looked at a number of things. No structures or uses shall be permitted to count as required open space, except for if you're active or passive per our definitions that we now have. So those were the big changes. And then again, we have a couple of guidelines that we can address as we go through. Trying to think what else we did. The one thing I wanted to note, because I think it's been brought up multiple times, is that we're also revising the street section of the subdivision code, which is actually going to increase the green space between the sidewalk and the curb. Because I know that's been a comment in the past where you only have maybe 3 feet to plant a street tree. I believe it's going to at least a minimum of 5 feet, which gives much more room than it gives at least another 2 feet for a tree to live in along the along the street edge. So that is something that is being done as part of the street section, which then does impact here. I don't think that falls into here because it falls into the street section, but I did want to make sure I did let you guys know that, because that is a change that I think is for the better, especially for the trees. Because the more room you can give them, the happier they usually are. And then if there were certain questions, I'm happy to answer. If I missed something, I think I got, like, the big things I did kind of go over. But again, the standards, it's set up differently. The standards are now the code requirements. Guidelines are potential conditions. Doesn't mean that we covered all of the potential conditions that are out there. There definitely still are potential for other ones. So you can still add those. So if we miss something, there's definitely the option to do that. But we were trying to think of like standard ones that we thought we see on a regular basis that may apply to certain developments. Don't forget, the city does have a wetlands buffer ordinance. It is referenced in here. It's not in here because that is in the zoning code. So we just reference that they still have to comply with that. So now I'll stop talking and take any questions, if anybody has anything. Yes?
Ask a question?
Oh, absolutely.
So, well, personally, I'm excited to see permanent open space and usable open space. And also on page 11, to see that it's financially secured, because I think once you have a developer bond something, then they know you're serious.
Yes.
Enforcement is always the trick. And because I notice, applicants should be making acceptable to the city. Is enforcement going to be an issue? Because this is a lot. Believe me, I'm not criticizing, because I feel like this commission needs to have more teeth when it comes to major subdivisions, and we're not just, our current code, we do what we can, but
I think
this commission needs to be able to say, this is acceptable, this is a good idea, this falls short, and this shouldn't proceed until these things are corrected.
So typically, since the trees will be bonded and landscaping will be bonded, if there's an issue, we won't release the bond.
Okay.
So that is a good thing, because we do require, and it's 150%. So, and I can just let you know, I do have history in figuring out bonding and cost for amenities. So when somebody tries to tell me that a 6-foot tree costs $69, I go like, no, go back and try again. So they should be in the several $100 range typically, especially since we require 7 and 8 foot tall trees. So that will get reviewed, make sure it's the right amount, and then it's 150%. Inspections, we have inspectors out on the sites all the time. And then typically, if there's need, I can go out, or I can have somebody from here come out and assist me just to make sure that the trees are still healthy. There is a guarantee that they have to survive. And then, then eventually we do release the bond. So we have the bond, and I can tell you in other places I've worked, I'd get out there, the tree wasn't planted, and it's like, Janelle, it's coming today. Because they knew they weren't getting their certificate of occupancy without that tree being planted, and they would send me the picture that make sure, because I try to make sure everything's there when it needs to be, because need everything to be in order.
Yeah. So you think the city has enough manpower between the different departments and commissions, to enforce?
I think so. And again, this is future subdivisions, so anything currently on the books, unfortunately, this does not fall into. It is for anything new, if this gets approved, and we're hopeful, because I think this gives it, as you said, a lot more teeth, and it's a lot more specific. Now, again, if something doesn't fit in here, this is the subdivision code, it can be waived by mayor and council. So there could be a request to waive something if something comes up. Typically, it's rare, and the ones we have been seeing actually haven't been in this section, have been in another section, and we're actually fixing that because it's become just a general engineering practice that our code was slightly out of date. But if there's something very unique about something that they need, that could happen, but that then ends up with a waiver to mayor and council. But I think, again, going from like a page to like multiple pages of what is required for a landscaping plan, I think really can help the city as we like to protect the environment.
Are there other questions or comment? Marty, I see your hand. I think you're muted, Marty. Okay.
Classic. I was trying to match up this with what's in the code now, and I guess the reason I was confused is because you're changing all the numbers,
Yes.
right? But
Yes.
But this sort of relates to section 170-26 right now. Is that?
Yes.
Did I get that right?
Yes, it's currently 126, but again, the numbers in some of the sections, everything's kind of changing, because we're adding new sections, we're removing new sections. I didn't want to give you with the strike through and the new, because there's so much. I mean, this literally is over 80 pages, and the subdivision code is not currently 80 pages. At least not that.
Okay,
But
well,
if
that
you need to
answers that
see it, it
question.
is on the city's website under the subdivision code subcommittee webpage.
Okay, well, that answers that. One question that's been a recurring source of frustration for me is that the term street trees is used in both chapter 170 and 177, but they mean very different things, very different things. And in 170, they mean basically things that are not in the city right away, if that definition still pertains. And in 177, they mean trees that are between the sidewalk and the curb, and they are under the jurisdiction of the Parks and Rec. You know, I'm responsible for maintaining them. I would like to stop that confusing terminology, and whether it means changing chapter 177 to a different term, and keeping street trees here or the other way around, I don't know. But right now, I think it's very confusing. And if you continue using the term street trees in this document, I think you either have to use the definition that's in 177 or something, change one code or the other. But I do see it used here. It says street trees shall comply with chapter 177, and I'm not sure which street trees you're talking about now in this particular document.
Okay, because I believe the current code does reference 177. So if there's a conflict, we can fix it. Because as we're doing this, we already know that we have to make minor changes to 197 in the zoning code and a couple other sections. So if there's a preference as to what you want this to, what the conflict is and how you want us to correct it, we will take that and we will look at it and amend as necessary.
This is a lot to absorb, so I need to absorb
Understood.
what you're trying to do here, and I see there's requirements for street trees to be planted in accordance with 177 along both sides of proposed public and private streets. But if you're using the same concept of street trees as is in current 170, chapter 170, it's the relationship to chapter 177, I don't know if that really works. That's a little confusing. So, I only got this afternoon. I haven't had a chance to really absorb it, so I really don't know what was intended. There's more reference to chapter 177 in here than there is, I think, in current 170, although I'll have to go back and double check that now that you've said that. So when it says street trees on page on page 4, are those trees planted between the sidewalk and the curb, or are those trees planted back outside of the city right away as used here?
No, they'd be within the right of way. So between the sidewalk and the curb, because we'd be expanding it
So that's a different
from.
use of the term than in current 170.
Okay.
So
yeah, I
that's
think
fine
that
with me,
intent-
as long as you don't have it'll make it confusing to go back and forth between the old standard and the new standard. I'm gonna look into a different term because I think it could be a source of unending confusion.
Okay.
There's a lot of confusion out there now, so, okay. I saw in here on the first page, D, paren 1, paren little a, it shall be responsibility of the owner to maintain all landscaping in accordance with the standards of this chapter. Does that mean even after the subdivision is completed and they get their final certificates of occupancy, yada, 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 that forevermore, the owners are required to maintain these plantings in accordance with the original city approval and in this chapter?
So any landscaping, now, if you want the street trees to fall under the jurisdiction of the city, we can look at that. If you don't, so there's landscaping around, landscape buffers, corridor buffers, stormwater management facilities, other things that the homeowners association will be responsible for. And that's standard now, is that then the HOA is responsible for the maintenance and upkeep of that landscaping.
Okay, so if a tree dies, the owner is responsible for replacing it and so on?
Yes, if it's in one of the buffers, if it's a street tree and you guys don't want to take ownership and responsibility of that, then we just need to make sure that's in the HOA documents. Or if you guys want it.
It's not a matter of wanting to. It's a matter of what the code provides right now.
Okay. I'm just,
So the code provides right now that trees planted between the curb and the sidewalk are street trees under chapter 177, and the Parks and Rec takes care of them. That's what the code provides. So was that not what you had in mind, or do you have?
Nope, that was my understanding of how we were writing this. So if there's a conflict, just let me know. I was thinking more landscaping is the responsibility, and then street trees are different in my mindset. But if you want that specific and cleared up, I can do that.
I'm not asking for anything different. I'm asking for what the intent was in rewriting it, because this changes the concept considerably. Look, under current 170, there's something called a street tree, but it's not on city property, and Parks and Rec does not take care of it. It's back from the sidewalk. It's away from the sidewalk. It's not on city right of way or anything. That's what a street tree is under current chapter 170, and Parks and Rec has nothing to do with it. And one of the problems is, even though it provides for that kind of street tree, I don't see anything that provides in current 170. It provides for an ongoing responsibility to maintain those trees. I'm just trying to get at what the current intent is for this change, because this changes a lot. Changes a lot from what I can see.
So
and are there requirements? There seem to be requirements for planting more trees that are not in the city right away, and therefore not under Parks and Rec. And that's great, but I assume that, I mean, some of the trees that are referred to, I think are on personal property, not HOA property. Is that, did I understand that correctly?
So
I only read it.
It's either going to be in the right of way or it's going to be part of the HOA. That's typically how it is. Now, it could, in a rare instance, that there's a buffer on somebody's personal property. I've seen that happen. So then that property owner is then responsible for the maintenance of those trees. Trying to think, there's a subdivision that was just approved, Old Town at White's Pond, there was an area of trees that were preserved, and part of that is actually on the backs of a couple of lots, and there's a note on that plan, and the owners are responsible for maintaining those trees, and those trees have to be protected. So it can happen. Parks and Rec, the city can be responsible, the HOA can be responsible, and the citizen can be responsible for, depends on where the landscaping is located on the property throughout the development.
Right. And can that can be, the city can enforce that against the homeowner?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, because it's in the code, so we have enforcement ability. So if somebody tries to remove trees that have been protected, we can stop them, and we have enforcement power to
replace it. So
yes.
For instance, on the fourth page, it talks about street trees shall be planted in accordance with chapter 177 along both sides of proposed public or private streets. So private streets.
Yeah, can I ask? We don't have.
If it's a private street,
actually,
it's not a right of way, is it?
It is still a right of way. We have a few. It's a right-of-way dedicated to public use, but it's privately maintained. So it's a weird
Okay.
hybrid that does exist.
Can you say it again?
So it's a right-of-way that's been dedicated to public use. So I don't live there, but I can use that road, but it's privately maintained.
Within the city
Okay, so
limits.
one of my
Correct.
questions about this, and maybe it's just because I don't.
There's a
understand
development off
how
of
Chapter
Cape
170
Henlopen
works, but
Drive.
one of my concerns about this is Chapter 177 doesn't require any street trees, doesn't require, it just says if they exist, Parks and Rec takes care of them. And that only applies to the trees between the sidewalk and the verge. We've seen recently some communities with no space between the sidewalk and the curb. So you have trees on either HOA property or private property, and I think the plans were originally approved with those trees required, and, I'm not sure how this all fits together, you know what I mean?
So as I stated earlier, the intent in the street section is actually going to widen that section of the grass between the back of the sidewalk and the cartway, which is the pavement, which is, the curb. So it'll actually increase the width, because I know a concern I want to say, one of the last subdivisions you guys reviewed, they were only providing like 3 feet, and you got them to go to 4 feet. Now it's actually going to be wider than that, because the last subdivision, they were planting trees in the right-of-way. I think there might have been a
Well,
couple
I don't know what the
outside.
reference is to planting in accordance with Chapter 177, because,
Not a problem. If there's a conflict, let us know what the conflict is, and we can take a look and we can address it, and we're happy to do that.
okay, I will, do you want, like, written comments from us? Is that how?
If you want written comments, we'll take them. You just send me an email. I'm happy to take them, put it, and then pass them on to the Subdivision Code Subcommittee.
Okay.
Again, don't forget, if you want to stop by in the public workshop next week, you can do that as well, because we're taking public comments.
I will try to do that, but it just gets very detailed to try to
Well, and I
understand what the intent was and as far, so.
Yeah, and I think I think we need to remember it is still a working document. This did just come out today, and I'm sure that people would like to dive deeper into it and make some comparisons between chapters and sections. So, if,
I understand that, but I can't make any comments. I mean, it's hard to make comments if I don't know what the intent is. And I understand it's a working document, and that's part of where we're going with this, because we need to work out some fixes. But I did notice on page 9, it talks about if any tree is located closer than 10 feet to a sidewalk, there have to be root barriers installed, and that's a lovely idea. I don't remember seeing that. Maybe I missed it because, like I said, I just got this. I don't remember seeing this as to trees planted between the sidewalk and the curb. Does that still pertain? Because those will turn into city trees. Does this apply whether it's between the sidewalk and a curb or on the other side of the sidewalk? Is that at the?
I'm going to have to triple read it to provide you a definite answer, because again, we're still putting all of this together. I got this draft last week. Not kidding. I mean, everything's been, we get section by section as we've been going. So we've been trying, again, this hasn't even gone to the planning commission yet. This is how early we are in the process. We're actually going to take it out to the public first before they take it to the planning commission, because they want to get the public input. And one of the asks of me was to make sure you guys got a copy and had the ability to review it, and then, ask questions and then provide comments. I don't need comments today. Don't worry about that one. Again, we're going to actually have a presentation kind of over the big changes, because there's a lot of changes going on to this, not just even these sections. Next week, we can provide more detailed comments. If you've got questions, you can email me, and then I can get you back direct answers, and I'll reply back to everybody on the commission, so you guys are all get the same answer, so you're all aware of what's going on. Because if there's a conflict, that's what we're trying to get rid of, is we recognize there are conflicts and we're trying to eliminate them. So if we've created a conflict, please let us know because we want to get rid of them.
Okay. Appreciate that, thank you. I'm gonna stop now and start making lists of questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Marty. Are there any other comments, questions at this point? And not seeing or hearing any, I would just, for those who are able to come to the public hearing, I encourage you to do so. It's pretty much a hands-on, public hearing, workshop. I correct myself. It's very hands-on, so I think that you would gain a lot more information from it if you're able to come. But if not, please submit your questions and comments to Janelle, and she will get back with you. So it's a lot to digest, certainly.
So thank you very much. You have a wonderful evening.
Thanks, Janelle.
Thank you.
What's the date of that?
Tuesday, the 23rd.
From 10 to 1.
10 to 1. So there will be a presentation at 10:15 a.m. and then
At noon.
at noon.
And if you can't make it, the presentation will be streamed live along with the questions. And we're working on having all the exercises available on the website as well in a slightly different format. So you can see the exercises we're doing in person. You can also put, hopefully, if I can get it to work, which it should, to do online as well, because we want to make sure we're getting everybody's feedback.
Great. Thank you. Thanks, Janelle. Okay. That brings us to item C1, which is our commissioner's report. Rodney is not here with us tonight, and nor is Barry. I do not have a report from either of them on the parks, but I do have a report from Barry on the update on the Public Art Committee, so I will save that for last. As we go through the park reports, what I would ask is that you just state your name for us and the park that you're commissioner for. I've had some feedback that with the Zoom and the live stream, people that are watching from home cannot see our nameplates. So if we could just do a little roll call before you give out your report, that would be much appreciated by the folks at home. So I'm going to go right to left here. So Kay, if you could give us your report, please.
I'm Kay Carnahan, the City Beaches Commissioner. I have a short report. The city beaches have weathered the recent storms pretty well. We've had very high tides. The residential beach section has had erosion, especially mid-October, really felt it. I had a meeting 2 weekends ago with Ms. Trina Brown-Hicks and Reverend McCafferty, and we were discussing overall items included in the budget that's upcoming and working on a vision for signs for both Johnny Walker Beach and Savannah Beach. And so I'm hoping tonight we can work out a schedule of meeting over the winter so that we can carry on with that and have everything ready for the spring.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kay. Candace?
Candace Vasella, Commissioner for Stango Park. We're delighted that we have 3 tables and 12 chairs behind the museum here, just to my left. Unfortunately, the tables that arrived were not quite the size that we had ordered, so they've been back ordered. But in the meanwhile, for folks who would like to come and enjoy the sunshine and sit there in the park and enjoy it, there are tables and chairs now on the patio area. and they're quite durable, and we're delighted with the color, so come on out and see them. Thank you.
Thank you, Candace. Ray?
Yeah, my name is Ray Frutella, Commissioner for Zonendale Park. November was a really busy month for us. On November 3rd was our tulip planting day. I have to commend the patrons for the park from Lewis and Bloom, Ann Hansel and Pam Rankin. They had a large group of volunteers out for that day, and over 3,500 tulip bulbs were planted in the park in front of the Fisher Market House and in all the gardens. So that was
4,050.
4,050. Well, there,
Wow.
see, I must have left early then, Warren, because I
Plus
didn't.
400 daffodils.
Okay, plus 400 daffodils, that's right.
Very
I have the
precise,
400
Warren.
daffodils that were planted, and that was in 3 of the 4 places near the fountain. So the colors will be great. They're picked out specifically by Lewis and Bloom, and I'm sure they're going to be wonderful. And then we're looking forward to the events that are going to happen in December, of course, in the park. So thanks.
Great. Thanks, Ray. I hope you can come out for the installation of the tree.
I'll be there.
It's always quite an event. Thank you. Warren?
Warren Goldie, Commissioner for Mary Vessels Park and 1812 Park. I've nothing really to report on those 2 parks because tulip planting for those parks is going to take place this week. We have removed the fall displays and are ready for tulip planting. Just to let other commissioners know, we have planted in Otis Smith Park, or Lewis and Bloom has planted, 1,800 tulips and 100 grape hyacinths. And in the Stango complex, 5,150 tulips.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you, Warren. Harry?
I'm Harry Kaiser, and I'm one of the commissioners of the George H.P. Smith Park. This month, we planted native grass plugs around the narrowest part of the path over near the BB parking lot. We evaluated the no-mow along the narrowest part of the path that had been recommended earlier this year, that it worked well enough that we're thinking about addressing BB and asking them to possibly do the same thing on their side of the fence by putting those little concrete barriers to keep the cars from running onto the grass, which they have scattered everywhere anyway. Ed, Janet, and I started working on an expanded mission statement. The original mission statement concerned Blockhouse Pond, and its intent was to maintain a native area for flora and fauna. Since the George H.P. Smith Park includes Blockhouse Pond is around 7.5 acres of water. We wanted to include the total 18 plus acres of Smith Park in our new mission statement. We supervised the seeding of the area of the historic Lewis Farmers Market that was paid for by the Farmers Market. Ed had a good suggestion that next year we could possibly plant clover instead of grass. If you look at the grass after the market, the clover was a lot stronger and held up a lot better to the foot traffic. And clover is a much more positive thing for native bees and other insects. So we're going to look into recommending clover next year. We added more crushed stone at the entrance of the farmers market. That goes from the front of the school and down the hill where the trucks come in and out. It had been worn fairly thin in the rains and the trucks, so we added more of that. And then the last thing Ed and I did was we worked on the 21-22 budget.
That's it.
And that's it.
I have one question, Harry, talking about the farmer's market. Have they gotten their end of season report to you yet? Is it, okay. Do you,
As of Saturday, she didn't have it ready.
But,
Forthcoming.
yeah, it's forthcoming.
Okay.
Their plan is always to present it before Thanksgiving.
okay, all right, great. So we should have that then next month for,
Yes.
okay, great, thank you.
Janet, may I
Warren?
amend? Could I-
Please.
Yes, I think I forgot something with 1812 Park. I'm not sure of the timing, but the city landscaper, Distinctive Landscaping, added gravel to the cannon area down on the lower level of the park, and also spikes seeded, some grass seed in the upper level. I think that was since our last meeting. I'm not-
It was,
Yeah.
yes.
Right after, I guess.
It was. Thank you, thanks. Moving over to our commissioners on the Zoom. Judy, would you like to give your report?
Sure. Judy Jeffers, and I'm a recreation, community park, playground, and the basketball courts and tennis courts and the marina. And we, I note, I worked on my budget with Janet. I did, for a second. As far as other things, I've been in discussion about the playground area and the shade cover that's going to be on the playground that's now at Canalfront Park is being, the Friends of Canalfront Park are helping with that. I have also just have been working on trying to see if we can do a can-do boundless playground with several community people. And I attended the ceremony at HP Smith's for the plaque that was installed.
Great, thank you. Christine?
Yes, Christine Beshy, co-commissioner for Stango Park and Stango Park Extended. I don't have anything to report, as Candace has already reported on the addition of our new patio furniture. We did submit our budget, of course, like everyone else. And I did have a question, and I usually report on it. I assume that the irrigation has been winterized for all of the parks. Is that correct?
When I last talked to Patrick, it was about a week and a half ago, and he was going to be out of town. So I will touch base with him again this week, because I think we are heading for some chilly morning temperatures, overnight temperatures.
Yeah, and there are concerns about the sidewalks freezing over. They get glazed.
Right.
If there is a frost and the irrigation is still on, so.
Right.
I hadn't heard that he had done any winterization yet, so.
I can
if we
update
could
you.
follow up.
I talked to Patrick today. He has
Okay.
turned off the irrigation in all the parks, but
Okay.
he has not
Yeah.
winterized
Okay.
yet.
Gotcha, okay, that's good. All right, well, thank you, Warren.
All right.
That's all I have to report.
Thank you, Warren. And I will follow up with him as well.
Okay,
Because there's a few other items that I have to talk to him about as well, so thank you for that. Marty, you want to report out?
Okay, thanks. The big news is that our tree planting grant project was finished up. Bartlett is our contractor, and they planted 10 trees along West 4th Street. It worked out pretty well, I think. And they also planted, there was one failed tree on 2nd Street from last year's planting project, and they replaced that tree. So we're well on our way. I think they're going to look great as they settle in. I attended a webinar on the science of tree planting and learned a lot about tree baskets and other things, and that was good. The short version is science doesn't really tell you whether to take the basket off or not, and there's still a lot of strongly held views on all sides of that issue, but personally, I like taking it at least halfway off. Because you can't even find the root flare until you do that, and make sure you plant at the correct depth. I also attended a tree care seminar put on by the Delaware and Maryland Departments of Forestry. They joined forces this year to have a tree care seminar. So I got updates on pests and urban tree gizmos. There's a new kind of tree diaper, they call it, that I'm going to give it a go and try that. Lessons on trimming around utility lines and why things look the way they do. And also grant funding opportunities. There's a lot of different grant funding opportunities, and I passed some information on to Harry and Ed about some grants that potentially might be useful in addressing the blockhouse pond issues we have. Also, basically continue doing tree tag maintenance, arbor scope updating, light pruning, and inspections. That's it.
Okay, thank you, Marty.
For Marty?
Yep, go ahead, Ed, thank you.
Hi, Marty. When Ed Tessine, Park Commissioner, when BPW does tree trimming, are you involved in that at all? Utility tree
I am
trimming?
not. It just happens. I just
Right.
show up and it's been done, and yeah.
Is there
They
anything we
don't
could
ask
do
me,
to
they don't-
maybe
yeah.
get her in the loop? It might be helpful.
Is there a specific concern?
Well, I just know when they trim my trees, it's horrendous. And
Yeah,
Well, I'll tell you, one of my main things about the way the utility trimming is done in the city, a lot of times, frankly, I'm looking at the trees that were put there and thinking they never should have been put there, a lot of them. So we're trying, the new plantings we're putting in, where there's wires around, we try very hard to have a species that's suitable and will never have big trimming issues. But it's difficult because there's a lot of trees that have been put in under wires. I mean, for a while, we had Norway maples put under wires. And of course, one by one, they've had to go, and I think they're all gone now. But I don't know about your particular tree. I haven't looked at your particular situation. But
okay.
yeah, I mean, the basic issue is that the utility pruners are not there to prune for beauty. They're there to prune for keeping trees away from wires. And hopefully they want to prune so that they won't have to come back for multiple years to keep the tree away from the wires. And that's a completely different pruning technique than we use for pruning for aesthetics and tree growth and central leader and those kinds of things.
Okay.
That's the basic issue there.
Yep. All right, thanks.
I
Thank
think one of the other issues that we need to be careful of is, Marty is a tree commissioner for the city and the city trees, and are we talking about the pruning of city trees by BPW or trees on private property? So I think we need to make that distinction, and I think certainly for those trees that are city trees that we're responsible for, it's certainly something that, is worthy of a discussion, but we can't have that responsibility for trees on private property.
Oh, no, I agree.
Yeah, so,
I was just curious if she was in the loop.
yeah. I think, when the city does pruning for signage and clearance of the city trucks and keeping the city trees off of parked cars on the side streets, where Marty is certainly involved in that because it's organized by the city. We know when the tree service that we've contracted with is coming in. So Marty is definitely, a party to that, so. Okay, thank you. Any other questions for commissioners, or we can move on to the next item? which is the update on the Public Art Committee. Kayla, can you pull up the agenda for tonight for this committee meeting? I have a couple of attachments that I'd like to bring up and talk about that the Public Art Committee has reviewed. Sorry, I meant to tell you that before the meeting started. What?
Surprise.
I know. Surprise. Kayla's great. Yep, no, take your time. I'm just, I will talk just a little bit. So the Public Art Committee met on Monday, November 1st at 6:30. And they did have several pieces of art that they were looking at and considering for installation. So I wanted to just have the commission see what they're considering, and just give you a little bit of information on what they have. This is very preliminary. It was just for the committee to look at and consider. The committee has to go back to the artist and talk about cost and some, availability and some other issues related. So if you could click on the absent monument for me, Kayla, please. No, you're fine. Yep. So I won't go through all of these pictures, but the absent monuments are these columns that the top part you can see is reflective. The bottom part are tiles that have a bit of a Dutch theme around the bottom, you can see there. And then they overlay, in this particular case, historic photos relevant to the location that the monuments have been installed. So the discussion of the committee was obviously kind of the Dutch look of the base of the monuments, kind of tied in obviously with the history of Lewis, and working with getting historical photos to be overlaid on the tiles. The information that we received is that they're approximately 10 feet tall. They do not need constant maintenance, particularly even in the environment that we have down here. You can see that, this particular installation is near water. So they seem to be, consistent with open space and history and our environment here. The artist is Rose Desano, Desiano. So if we can go to the next artist, please, Vivian Collins. So these are, this is called branches. These are 10 to 12 feet tall. They are set on a small, concrete base. They are representative of trees. And that's about as much information as I have on that. There was some discussion of possibly a possible location for those at Canalfront Park. There was discussion of a possible location of Zwannendale Park for the absent monuments. And then the final artist was Letha Wilson. And this is an actual photograph of leaves on a metal structure. The structure does require, obviously, as you can see in this photograph, a rather significant concrete pad. So we did talk about the location of where we may consider a piece of this size and not being directly placed under trees and on the root system of trees and under the drip line of trees. But it's an interesting piece. This piece stands approximately 6 to 8 feet. So the committee is going back to the artists and considering, other factors in getting these into the parks. They would like to do all 3 if we can for the coming year. And there will be further discussion as to location. But, they did talk about Zwannendale Park, Canalfront Park. There was some discussion possibly in Stango Park, the library area. So that's just to give you an idea of what might possibly be coming. On November 3rd, the group held a community workshop meeting. It was held at 7 o'clock at the Verdon Center. There was excellent attendance. We had about 45 to 50 people. Ed, I know you were there, so if you have any other comments. The guest speakers, obviously the Public Art Committee Chairman, Cliff Diver, opened up the seminar, the workshop, and the 2 guest speakers were Rodney Robinson, our commissioner here for Canalfront Park, who really talked about landscape architecture and art looking for a place and a place looking for art, and gave some really beautiful examples. And then the second speaker was Kate Dodd, who was the artist who did the installation in George H.P. Smith Park, Efflorescence, which was really a beautiful installation, and I think it got a lot of interest, piqued as people walked around the park. There was a question and answer period at the end, and people were really quite interested. I think it generated quite a bit of interest in public art in Lewis, and Lewis being a destination for public art. And Councilwoman Jones, you were there as well, so.
It was an excellent presentation.
Yeah. And if either you or Ed have any comments or anything to add to that, I welcome it.
I've had multiple conversations with Cliff, and Harry and I both agree. We think that we have a fantastic location in George H.P. Smith Park for a permanent location for temporary art, and that's the kind of direction we're looking at. And we would probably install a foundation that would be used for multiple exhibitions over the years to come. Then we're all for it, and
Okay.
we think it's a great
Had
draw for our park.
Had he talked to you about any of the 3?
He had, yes, yes.
Okay, all right, because he said that he had talked, but I
Yeah.
wanted the entire commission to be able to see what's, being proposed and discussed, and each of the commissioners knows their parks intimately, so having seen the pieces, if you have thoughts about it for your respective park or location, please let me know, and we can put that forward to the Public Art Committee. So, thank you. That completes item C and C1. So we'll move down to old business, item D1. Last month, we had a presentation from Lewis Lights and Deborah Evalds and Christian Mullins, as well as Rich Garrett from the Children's Beach House. So I wanted to circle back around. We did accept at last month's meeting, there was a motion and a second and a unanimous vote to accept the 2 wire-lit Christmas trees from the Children's Beach House. We did talk briefly about location. Ray, I know you were not able to be with us last month, but there was discussion. The Lewis Lights Committee was really asking if the Parks and Rec Commission would be more active in Lewis Lights and decorating parks and whatnot. And at this point, late in the year, we didn't have the resources to do that. But we did agree to further discussion as a commission in the coming year to see what we could do to participate more actively next year. With that being said, there was some discussion of the location of these 2 wire trees. They are approximately 15 feet tall. There was discussion about, making kind of a statement for a decoration in a park. So I open it up to the commissioners, having had a month to think about it and think about what we have done in the other parks or will do for the holiday season. I was walking around town this weekend, and Christmas Decor has started the light pole decorating with the garlands and the lights in 1812 and Mary Vessels. I know part of the Net House overlook will be decorated by the Friends of Canalfront Park. They do that every year and put a tree out. Zwannendale Park will have obviously the city Christmas tree, as well as another donated tree within the park that will receive white lights. So that has a few things going on, and I think if we can just think of how best to add these trees to what we have and kind of make that statement that we're looking for and welcoming people to the parks. So I open it up for your comments and suggestions and thoughts. Harry?
The biggest problem for us in Harry Kaiser, George H.P. Smith Park.
Thank you, Harry.
The biggest problem for us in our park is we do not have electricity in the park. We have one great big board that has been installed on Johnson between Park and DuPont, and that's where they run the when they do bands for night out. If we were to light up an area, and I was thinking it would be nice to have some sort of a structure like one of the stars that we have on the streets, or possibly a Christmas tree. It would have to be a discussion with our electric system and having them come in and talk about putting in conduit, putting in a permanent receptacle box. I'm sure BPW has that within their capabilities, but it would just come back again to a question of who owns that part of the park. And is our lease solid? I think that's Cape's part of the park.
That part of the park is leased to the city from the school district.
And then I would like to see that lease to see how long that's going to last. I mean, we don't want to put something in that's not going to be our park anymore.
Right.
But I can't see, I don't know, in my mind, I can't see Cape taking it back.
Right.
But all those things have to be thought about before we can bring electricity into the park. And I think it would be great next year to have something in the darkness there.
Right.
That would be visible from the street. I think it would be a terrific thing. Ed and I are both for that. It's just, it gets complicated.
Right, okay, thank you. That, it's a good observation. I will note that over in the community playground, we have installed the swing set as part of phase 2. We've got the ADA walkway. We're working on the pavilion. And one of the considerations for the pavilion is electric there as well. As you both had mentioned, for, you know, use by various groups, the farmers market potentially, for demonstrations and whatnot. So that could be another consideration to work hand in hand. There's a lot to that particular project, so I will obviously keep that in mind as we look at this little project too. So thank you. Other thoughts, comments? Christine?
Yes, Christine Bashy, Co-Commissioner for Stango Park and Stango Park Extended. I haven't discussed this with Candace Vasella, my Co-Commissioner, but I would like to mention perhaps the possibility of placing the trees in the stage area of Stango Park. There is electricity there and a platform on which to put them on, and it would perhaps show nicely through the trees coming in through the park, coming into the city. And I didn't know if anyone had any thoughts about that.
Candace Vasella, Co-Commissioner for Stango Park and Stango Park Extended. I'd support that. When this building used to be the library, there were window treatments with sparkly lights on all of the windows that faced the park back in the day when it was the library, and it was very festive. And so when people would drive down Kings Highway, they would see the back of the building illuminated with twinkly lights. So that would be consistent with a nice reception as people are coming down Kings Highway. And the stage does offer that. And since I don't think that there'll be any winter programs on the stage
No.
during this period, they could probably be
Right.
secured to the stage so that they wouldn't topple over. And since there is power there, that would be a good
Right,
location.
okay, that's a wonderful suggestion.
Right behind you, by the way.
Right, I know. So our next meeting, we can
Right.
turn around and see them.
You can see them.
Thank you for that suggestion
Okay.
and the support, thank you. Any other considerations? Ray,
Ray Fratello is Zonadale Park Commissioner. I've never seen Zonadale Park lit up, so I have to, if an addition of a tree is going to be, you know, a nice addition, that's great. If it's going to take away from the existing decorations, then I don't know. So I just defer to everybody else. I've only been here for 18 months, so. And last year, of course, we weren't able to do this, so.
yeah.
But I think it would be, you know, again, I would like to see Zonadale Park as lit up as possible all through the year, but especially at Christmas, yeah.
Okay, so I went through Wanendale Park earlier today just to check out electrical because every park is different. And there is an electrical outlet by the commemorative tree that is a live tree in the park. So you could do something on either side of that, and then you have a direct sight line to the city tree. I also looked at Canalfront Park, and there is electric down there at the arbor and the gazebo. But you'd have to literally be in the park to see it. You can't just drive by Zwannendale or Stango and see it. So those were just considerations from, my observation about those two parks. And Warren, do you have any thoughts for, 1812 and Mary Vessel's does have quite a bit going on
Yes.
with the lamp posts and the trees through the parking lot, so,
I think that would be too much.
okay, all right. And there was, I think at last month's meeting, there was mention of Otis Smith Park. I don't know if there's any further discussion about that possibility. Any other comments on any?
I don't know if the motion's in
I think-
order or.
George H.B. Smith Park was mentioned.
Right, and
Electricity, and
The-
it's, this year it's not feasible.
Right,
right.
right.
Um,
Okay.
Trina, would you like to
Janet?
step up to the microphone?
Yes, Trina Brown, 504 DuPont Avenue.
Thank you.
Brown Hicks. And I just wanted to ask, has anyone ever considered, and I don't know if it's feasible or what have you, but some type of solar lighting for
I
some,
think that was discussed briefly last month, but again, we would have to budget for solar lights.
all right, and I'm just asking that because I know, and Miss Chrissy knows that I have the solar lights out in front of my house, and they're colorful, but I don't know what kind of setup would be for a park per
Right.
se, but these are just the solar stakes in the ground.
That go in the ground. But I think it's certainly something that we can look at through the year as we continue with the project and getting more involved in,
Especially those parks that don't have electricity at
Right.
this point, so.
right.
Right.
That's a very good observation. Thank you, Trina. We
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Janet, there's a question in the Q&A.
Yep, I have Kayla on it. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Christian Mullins from Lewis Light said, are the twinkle lights from the old library still in storage somewhere?
No, there are no lights available for that, no.
Well, and,
Okay.
and Janet, for this Kay Carnahan, Lewis City Beaches, one thing I was thinking about for the beaches, because people sort of like the dark beaches, but I was thinking with the snow fence, it's a good place for wreaths or garlands or some sort of decoration like that. I think they could probably have battery-powered lights. I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's something, I've been organizing catalogs at home so that I can see about something for next year's budget,
Okay.
just as a thought of not having to add structure, but that structure's there, so maybe make use of that. That could be
That would be
fun
pretty.
and pretty.
Yeah, they need to be very well secured with the
Yes,
wind.
but you can really, it is sturdy there.
Right, I
And
mean, the
so-
fences don't blow over, it's
No.
just keeping the garland and the wreaths
Right, that's what I was
on.
thinking, was wreaths, you could really
You
hook
could
them
really
on.
wire
Yeah,
them on.
you could really wire them on.
And you wouldn't be able to see the wires because the lights would be.
Right,
Right.
right. So that's really, I think, kind of, most appropriate for what I have. I don't know, I'm open to ideas on it for next year, I think. But I like the idea of the trees being here. I think that seems like a good solution and a good use of them. It'd be highly visible.
Yes, absolutely. So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion
I'll make a motion.
that we install the lights or the trees right here. It makes practical sense, it's the least impactful, and it's something we could do
Okay.
right now.
Is there a second? So the motion
I'll
is,
second it.
pardon?
I'll second it.
Okay, Judy second. So the motion is to install the 2 donated trees here at Stango Park on the stage. We have a motion by Ed and a second by Judy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I think that will be a really nice addition. And of course, we do thank the Children's Beach House again for their donation. And that brings us to the end of the agenda for tonight. Is there well, can I talk about next month's meeting before we adjourn?
Yeah, when is it?
The next month's meeting is scheduled for Monday, December 20th, which is the week before Christmas. Christmas is that, what?
Saturday.
Saturday?
Yep.
Do we want to hold the meeting? Harry is giving me a nope. I don't, go ahead, Harry.
Harry Kaiser, George H.P. Smith Park. Not to sound negative or to be a Grinch, but I think unless we have anything really
Right.
pressing that would come forward on the agenda that could not be saved until the new year, let me be the first to wish everybody a happy new year, that we can give ourselves the month off since we've been such good boys and girls.
No coal for you. At this point, I have nothing pressing. So is there a decision to table next month's meeting, and then we would reconvene Monday, January 17th?
Sounds good.
Okay?
That's fine.
Okay, everybody's, okay.
Makes sense.
I think, this time of year, the activities are obviously not quite as abundant as they are in the summer, so I think we'll be okay. So the next meeting, the regular meeting of Parks and Rec Commission will be January 17th, 2022, Monday at 6:30 PM. Is there a motion to adjourn for tonight?
So
It-
moved.
It is 7:49. Kay made a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Warren, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Unanimously passes.